course.
Yeah, there are some things like that. Okay. There are some subjects that, yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to talk. I mean, you decide if this is okay for the public.
Sure.
Or not.
Right.
First of all, when I was in Bulgaria, two of my friends over there, they had interest about the ormus,
right.
the crystal,
right.
with the taste of salt.
Right.
And they said, how he get it?
Gotcha.
And I said, I don't know, I need to ask him. So how you get it?
Well, they can contact me. The best way is to contact me through my phone and text, and that phone number is area code, United States area code, 949-690-2171. I'll repeat that again. Area code 949-690-2171.
Yeah.
And my email is wantedresults, all one word, at gmail.com. It's lower cap, so, yeah.
So, but can you tell us how this ormus show up in your lab?
It was very interesting because I was working on some other formulas that would be considered maybe alchemical in nature, and in my lab, and I was actually producing chemically two kinds of ormus that I was working on. One was through hydrochloride and some mineral, and the other was through magnesium. So I was using those two techniques, but totally separate from what I was doing with alchemical kinds of things. So there's a number of areas I was working on, and in the area where I was working on the alchemical experiments, the ormus just showed up. Now, I know why it showed up and I know how it showed up, but it showed up on its own. I just looked at this and I'm like, this looks like ormus, and it's behaving like ormus. So I studied it a little bit, and I'm like, well, maybe I have to take the plunge here. So I picked it up, I ate it, and one of the things that ormus does is it balances your right and left hemisphere. Because, in Western civilization, we're really slanted a lot towards our left hemisphere, which is the rules, regulation, technicality, and not the creative side, which is the right hemisphere. And that's the creative side. So one of the things that ormus does is it balances those two. And but normally most of the ormuses you won't feel it. It's residual. Most of the ormuses are cut, so they're kind of expensive to make, and it's a little difficult to get pure ormus. So most of the ormuses are purchased or maybe cut fairly significantly, maybe 100 times. I have a fellow I know who makes some powerful ormus. He cuts his ormus 1,000 times. And so in taking their ormus and the ormus I was making, I didn't really feel anything. I mean, I was taking it and I had hope for what the results would be, but there wasn't anything that you could put your finger on that happened immediately. So what happened here is I put it in my mouth, and immediately I could sort of feel this motion in my head. And I could feel, it was like so many things, it was somewhat subtle. It wasn't real dramatic, but it was definitely, you could definitely feel it. And I felt an easing. I felt like my right and left hemisphere, I felt an easing in my mind and an easing in my body immediately. And so at that point, I'm like, yeah, I'm almost 100% sure this is ormus. And I was really kind of astonished because I didn't ever have feelings directly when I took it.
Yeah.
Even the Ormus I made or the other Ormuses that, that I'd obtained, and the other people I knew that were making Ormus. And that was kind of their response too. But this was immediate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. So then I paid attention to it. Because it had happened in the lab, I knew how it formed, but I didn't know why it formed.
Yeah.
And it formed on its own. So in the lab material, it started forming, started growing. And I was a little bit astonished because one of the astonishing things about this Ormus is that it was growing in an alchemical manner. It wasn't growing in a chemical manner. So there's a big difference between the processes that are alchemical and a process that's chemical. And so that was basically how I was introduced to the Ormus. The Ormus showed up in my lab, and hi, I'm Ormus, take me.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay.
Okay, let's jump to another topic.
Sure.
Can you share a little bit, or you decide if you can, about the little people?
The little people, this is a fascinating area. This is an area, yes, that's an area I have quite a bit of familiarity with. Some familiarity I can share, some familiarity I cannot share, but not at this time anyway. Okay, so let's go to the shaman. In the area I'm in, there's a very famous area called Uinta Basin. The Blind Frog Ranch is there, also Skinwalker Ranch is there. Both of these are on television programs, productions on different channels. One's on Discovery, one's on History. And this is an area that has a lot of ancient kinds of phenomena. It has a lot of energetic phenomena, an extreme amount of paranormal phenomena through this whole area, which is a large area. I mean, it covers a couple of counties. It's this mountain range that's called the Uinta Basin. And this area, if you talk to the Native American Indians, the Ute Indians, they not only, I'll share something with you. That maybe I shouldn't share, but what the heck, I'll share it anyway.
Okay.
So they, if you talk to them, now they have great respect for what's called these, what is termed the little people. They've worked with them ever since they've been there. The little people help them. They historically have given them knowledge. They've historically, these are beings that are basically have interdimensional capability. They can move from one realm to the other. They're beings that are highly intelligent. As a race or as a species, they have more intelligence than the human has. Now, as humans, we have a lot of capability. The problem is that it's very difficult for us to access that capability. And so that's where you get the statistics from the scientists that say, well, you're using, 10% of your brain, or you're using 8%, or whatever percentage it is. It's not a very big percentage. And the same with the cognitive skills. So a lot of what happens is subconscious as opposed to cognitive. Mm-hmm. But what we would like to do in order to have breakthroughs and raise our consciousness level, we would like to have more cognitive power, more cognitive, our bandwidth cognitively we would like to increase. And the more we can do that, the more information we can process cognitively, that puts us on a higher level.
So they're not from our reality.
They are and they aren't. They're in our reality and not in our reality. So they can be in our realm or dimension or whatever, probably realm or dimension. Yes, they have that ability to be interdimensional. I mean, like string theory, in order for string theory to work, if we want to look at the physics of this, so we've got 11 to 13 dimensions. And if you plug that into the math, then that makes string theory work. And so I only mention that to let you know that physics is very the physicists are very intrigued with other dimensions, and there are materials in this dimension that go interdimensional, and a number of the scientific community are aware of that. It's not really well published, but it's well known in those circles, and so I just mentioned that to kind of confirm that science is now trying to come to grips with what's going on with these different realms. How are they connected to our realm? How are these things interrelated? What does it mean? What are the meanings of this? What are the ramifications? So, yeah.
Because you mentioned about the string theory,
right?
The string theory,
yes,
it's about vibration.
Yes.
So if we're able to increasing or manipulating that vibration, then will be easy for us to passing from one dimension to another dimension.
There's probably a lot of accuracy to that statement. I mean, there's moving parts, and obviously it's more complex. There's complexities, but there's a lot of accuracies, and in general, yes, yeah, that seems to be that's it's a lot of vibrational phenomena involved, but yes, and the shaman, of course. A lot of people who meditated have gone into. In fact, a lot of people go into realms very briefly, and they don't even know it, for a couple of reasons. One is cognitive dissonance. They experience cognitive dissonance, so they don't really know they've gone into it, and the subconscious is like, these are not the droids you're looking for. So the subconscious obfuscates experiences that would be shocking to us. It's trying to protect us, but really, the womb becomes a tomb sometimes. So
you said that the little people, they've
right.
been in contact with Native Americans for years.
That's there, yes,
decades.
Yes.
And
Millennia.
You said that
from the beginning.
You said they give Native Americans knowledge.
Yeah,
what
and
kind
help.
of knowledge?
Well, they're for one thing, you can imagine. I mean, just imagine a species that has access to other realms, and has just to imagine if they have the ability to go from one realm to another realm, kind of at will. A lot of people in meditation and different kinds of exercises and ceremonies may go into another realm, but most of us can't do that at will. Now, so imagine that they can do these kinds of things. They're a natural. They're aligned with nature. They have tremendous knowledge about nature. I mean, I would liken them to the Aborigines of Australia before Australia was invaded by Britain. So the Aborigines had extensive interactional knowledge with nature, and it was easy for a number of them, according to a lot of narratives, to go into different realms. They had that capability. So I'm just using that as an illustration to to sort of point out this isn't really unusual. It's not that unusual. It's just our knowledge and the publicity behind it isn't very big. Some of the powers that be would rather you not know this and would rather you don't explore this for various reasons, and we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, there's a lot of reports, we can say reports from any places in the planet, like Dogoni, the tribe of the civilizations of Dogoni, and many others.
Right.
They had knowledge about the space, about the planets, about the distances between the planets.
Planet Sirius, that whole Sirius phenomena, and the planets there.
And they say that they get that knowledge from the star people.
Yes.
So we're talking about two different kind of species,
right?
Like little people, they coming from multi dimensions, and the other people, they coming from the stars.
Right. And ancient historical accounts are riddled with this kind of phenomenon. So this isn't something that's, this is something that, in fact, almost, you'd have to say the majority of ancient civilizations that have passed on knowledge, either recorded or verbally. The majority of them have these kinds of experiences with different groups with various and different groups of other species, and also common, of course, from the student of ancient prehistoric history and these civilizations is going to come across the phenomenon right away that very, very often these ancient narratives are explaining the fact how they've gotten tremendous knowledge from these different groups of people. I mean, you want to go back to the Anunnaki and Enlil and Enki and that whole phenomenon, the whole Sumerian phenomenon, and I mean that would be a phenomenon that is very widely known. But the Anunnaki brought tremendous amount of information and tremendous amount of technology to the people. Yeah. So this is not. It's really not something the student might run across in academia so much, unless they're specialists. They specialize and they'll get into that area. But in terms of the corpus of knowledge that's out there that can be accessed as you explore these things jump out at you, and they're very common, they're very widespread, and they're common all throughout the globe, all throughout the planet. In the majority of ancient cultures that have preserved some of this knowledge in tradition, in writings, and so. I mean, that's mentioned just to kind of highlight the point. This isn't as unusual as it might seem. This isn't as extraordinary. I mean, it is extraordinary, but it isn't a remote phenomenon.
Yeah. Okay. So I see the last maybe 10 years, all these activities increasing in the sky. People see lights, people reporting some kind of encounters with unusual stuff.
Yes.
Why that happen these days? What's going on with the globe?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I don't have a definitive answer for that. I mean, I have, so a lot of my thoughts on that would be speculative. obviously we're entering a new age zodiacally, and it's an age of knowledge, enlightenment. If you follow the cycles of the cycles of creation and the cycles of different time periods, we're re-entering a very generative time period, a harmonious time period, when these energies are that have been rather distant from the Iron Age are now going back into more harmony and more harmonious kinds of things, along with the opposite, which is the expansion of the forces that a lot of people would consider dark forces, whether it's politically. Bulgaria has a very, very rich history, historically, ancient historic. I know that there were a lot of phenomena, a lot of you could call it energetic phenomena, a lot of, and they're really very steeped. It's really a rich amount of phenomena that occurred in Bulgaria and still does. I mean, I have some ideas, but they're just pretty speculative in nature. I would really, on my bucket list, really is to go to Bulgaria and see some of these things firsthand and feel some of those areas. Eastern Europe is the whole of Eastern Europe is just absolutely a fascinating area, but. That would be my thoughts on Bulgaria.
Final words?
Final words, we're living in an exciting era where there's a lot of knowledge that's coming to the surface. Now, a person has to kind of take on the attitude of a seeker and has to go find it, but it's surfacing, and it's surfacing in a lot of ways. A lot of people are getting reconnected with nature and with the earth and with these kinds of things that the ancients had so much knowledge, so much appreciation of, and were so blessed by. So just my advice is, let's just continue. Let's explore these things, and let's see what we can find out and what kind of benefits and how we can harmonize it, because there's, I think, magnificent futures and opportunities here. And that would be kind of my, I guess, final thoughts.
Me, thank you, George, for your
welcome.
time. And
most welcome.
We're really very happy to have you in here for Disclosure Bulgaria.
I'm happy to participate.